You're humiliating me here.
You did that yourself.
How does a midnight walk with an ex turn into a lawful end before the wedding even begins? What happens when a bride-to-be thinks nostalgia is harmless and her fiancé answers in daylight, not words? Can a woman claim love when her own actions prove otherwise? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Evadne, and I used to believe one harmless walk couldn't ruin an entire life. It sounds foolish now, but at the time, I told myself closure wasn't cheating, that a midnight conversation with my ex was just nostalgia before my new beginning. I had everything planned, the dress, the venue, the speech I'd post later for views. I thought I was untouchable. Noah, my fiancé, was calm, steady, too rational for his own good. When he asked where I'd been that night, I smiled and said, "Just clearing my head." He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. That silence should have scared me. Instead, I mistook it for forgiveness. Everyone always said I was the bold one, the honest one, the kind of woman who made her own rules. I like that story about myself, but rules don't bend forever. Sometimes they snap back quietly, and by the time you hear it, it's already over. The morning after our rehearsal, when the cameras flashed and he handed me the envelope in front of everyone, I finally understood what silence sounds like when it wins. If I'm being honest, I still think most of this was blown out of proportion. When people talk about what happened, they act like I committed some crime, like a single walk under streetlights somehow erased 3 years of building a life together. I keep replaying that week before the rehearsal, and it still feels like I was just trying to breathe. That's all it was. One breath before everything tightened again. Noah had been different lately. Not cruel, just quiet. He'd stopped asking questions about my day, stopped touching my back when he passed behind me in the kitchen. At first, I told myself it was normal stress. Weddings are pressure cookers. Everyone knows that. But the silence stretched so long that it started to feel like punishment. I'd say something about flowers or guests, and he'd nod without looking up from his laptop. I'd tease him, "You're supposed to care about your own wedding, you know?" And he'd say he was just making sure the finances lined up. Finances. He made it sound like love was a spreadsheet. That night, I was at the kitchen counter scrolling through venue pictures while he worked at the table. 2 mugs sat between us, mine half full of tea, his black coffee already cold. He kept typing. The sound of his keys was the only thing in the room. I hated that sound. It was so calm, so sure. I wanted him to look at me, to argue, to do something. So I said, "You don't have to pretend to be perfect all the time." He looked up, blinked once, and said, "I'm not pretending." I rolled my eyes. That's the problem. He didn't ask what I meant, just saved his document and closed the laptop. Then his phone buzzed. He reached for it, the screen flashing for a moment. I caught a glimpse of a calendar alert, downtown 9:10 a.m. He turned it face down. I asked if he was meeting someone. He said it was personal. "Personal like what?" I asked. "Just personal," he repeated, standing to rinse his mug. He always washed his right away, like he couldn't stand leaving traces of himself anywhere. I left mine sitting, the tea cooling to a dull film. He leaned against the sink, arms folded. "You've been distracted lately," he said. I laughed. "I'm planning a wedding. I think that qualifies." "That's not what I mean." I waited, but he didn't finish the sentence. He just turned off the light and said goodnight, like we hadn't been mid-conversation. I lay awake later, staring at the ceiling fan. He was hiding something. I could feel it. Maybe it was just nerves, but a part of me started cataloguing every little thing. The phone reminders, the tidy drawers, the way he'd started keeping receipts in a neat stack on his desk. It was obsessive, almost secretive. The next morning, he was gone before sunrise. His side of the bed was smooth, like it hadn't even been slept in. A note sat on the kitchen counter. Breakfast in the fridge. Simple, neat handwriting, his name at the bottom. I wanted to crumple it, but instead I stared at my phone. That's when the message appeared, from Jonas. Jonas, still awake? I heard you're getting married. Can we talk before then? Just one walk. I need to clear my head. I hadn't thought about him in months, maybe a year. Jonas was the kind of man who lived entirely in moments, reckless, bright, always promising more than he could give. He'd been my first serious relationship in my 20s, the one I thought I'd never quite escape. Seeing his name again was like seeing an old bruise and pressing on it just to feel something. I typed back before I could think, "You choose the place." All day at work, my phone buzzed with reminders and messages about the rehearsal dinner, but my mind was somewhere else. I told myself it was harmless curiosity. I was marrying Noah, not revisiting the past. Still, by lunchtime, Jonas had texted a location, the riverside promenade where we used to walk during summer. Midnight, classic Jonas. When I came home, Noah was already there, sitting on the couch, the TV on but muted. He looked up briefly and asked how my day went. I said fine. He asked if the florist called. I lied and said yes, everything was confirmed. He nodded. We existed in that quiet again. Around 8, I said I was going for a walk. He didn't ask where, just murmured, "Be careful." That annoyed me. No curiosity, no suspicion. I almost wanted him to ask, just to prove he still cared enough to worry. Instead, he just clicked a reminder on his phone and went back to reading. The night air was cool when I reached the river. The lights shimmered across the water, yellow streaks bending with the current. Jonas was already there, leaning against the railing. He smiled that same easy, infuriating smile. "You look exactly the same," he said. I told him he was lying, that I looked older. He said, "Older isn't worse." We walked without touching at first, talking about nothing. The weather, the music from the cafe across the street, the old group of friends who'd all drifted away. He said he missed how simple things used to be. I told him nothing had ever been simple with him. He laughed, then he asked, "Are you happy?" I didn't answer right away. "Happiness isn't the point," I said finally. "Stability is." He nodded slowly. That's what people say when they're not happy. I hated that he could still read me like that. I said Noah was good to me, responsible, solid. Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like you're describing an insurance plan." I laughed too loud, and for a second, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, seen. We stopped near the old bridge where the path curved under the trees. The air smelled faintly of river algae and cold iron. Jonas looked at me, the way he used to before everything fell apart, like I was the only person on the planet. He said, "I shouldn't have called. I just needed to know you're okay." "You could have texted that," I said, but I didn't move. He reached for my hand briefly, just a touch, nothing more. I didn't pull away. It wasn't romantic, not exactly, it was memory. But that's the problem with memory. It never stays quiet. When I finally walked back toward the street, headlights cut across the path. My pulse jumped. For a moment, I thought it was Noah's car, but it passed without stopping. Still, the thought lodged in my throat. At home, the apartment was dark except for the glow from his phone on the nightstand. He was in bed, pretending to sleep. I stood in the doorway and said, "You're still awake." He didn't answer. I changed quietly, crawled into bed beside him. His breathing was even, calm. I wanted to shake him, to make him react, to get any kind of emotion. Instead, I whispered, "You don't have to ignore me." He opened his eyes then, just barely. "I'm not ignoring you," he said. "I'm thinking." "About what?" He turned his head to look at me, expression unreadable. "About how people define loyalty." I felt my stomach twist. "Don't start with philosophy now." He smiled faintly. I'm not starting anything. I woke the next morning to the sound of the shower running. His phone buzzed on the dresser again. Another calendar alert. Personal meeting, 9:10 a.m., same time as before. I stared at it until the screen went dark. When he came out, I asked, "Are you avoiding me?" He toweled his hair dry. "Why would I avoid you?" "Because I can feel it," I said. He met my eyes. "Maybe you're feeling something else." I didn't know what that meant, and before I could ask, he grabbed his keys. "Don't forget the cake tasting later," he said, and left. At work, I couldn't focus. My brain replayed the walk with Jonas, the way his thumb brushed my hand, the way I didn't stop it. I told myself it didn't count. I wasn't unfaithful, I was just sentimental. Everyone wants to feel chosen, even if they already are. When I came home that evening, the apartment smelled faintly of printer toner. I found a blank sheet still sitting in the tray, warm. The laptop screen glowed faintly. Noah's spreadsheet open, rows labeled utilities, accounts, insurance. I closed it quickly. That night over dinner, I told him Sienna had asked if we wanted her to handle the rehearsal playlist. He said, "Whatever you want." I said, "You mean you don't care?" "I mean, I trust your judgment." His voice was too even, too polite. It felt like he was reciting something rehearsed. I said, "You don't even sound excited anymore." He looked at me then, really looked, and said, "Excitement isn't the same as commitment." I didn't have a comeback, so I reached across the table, took his hand. "You love me, right?" "Of course," he said, and gently pulled his hand back. Later, I texted Jonas, "We shouldn't meet again. It's better this way." He sent one reply. "Sure, but you didn't say you didn't want to." I didn't answer. I lay awake listening to the faint hum of the printer again, that soft mechanical whir that always came after midnight. It sounded almost like breathing. I told myself he was just finishing work, but when I went to the kitchen for water, I saw the glow of his phone, the neat rows of folders on his laptop, labeled Archive A and Archive B. I should have asked. I didn't. Instead, I whispered into the dark, "We're fine." It sounded convincing enough to make me believe it, for now. The morning after that restless night felt heavier than usual. Sunlight cut through the blinds in clean, narrow lines, slicing the room into halves, one bright, one dim. Noah had already gone. The blanket on his side was folded back like he'd left neatly on purpose, not by accident. I stayed still for a few minutes, trying to decide whether to be angry or relieved. Angry felt safer, so I chose that. I made coffee, poured it into the first clean mug I saw. His, of course. It felt like claiming something, even if it was petty. The apartment smelled faintly of printer toner again. The smell was getting familiar, almost part of the air now. I opened a window to let it out and told myself I wasn't suffocating, just over-caffeinated. My phone buzzed. A message from Sienna. Running through the rehearsal checklist today, confirming final head count? I typed back, "Yes, all set." Then she sent another. "Noah's been so quiet in the group chat. Is he okay?" I stared at the text, thumb hovering. "He's just busy," I wrote finally. It looked convincing enough. Around noon, the florist called about the centerpiece designs. I could barely focus. Every voice I heard, vendors, friends, even my mother's, sounded like static. Everyone wanted to confirm something. Everyone wanted control. I just wanted noise to drown out my thoughts. When my break came, I walked down to the Riverside Cafe near my office. It was bright, crowded, loud, the kind of place where people pretended their lives were simple. I ordered an iced tea, sat by the window, and scrolled. That's when Jonas's name flashed again. "Jonas, you didn't say goodbye properly last night." I read it twice. The word properly made my skin tighten. I should have deleted it, but instead I typed, "We said enough." He replied instantly, "If you're so sure, why are you answering?" I told myself I was being polite, mature, responsible. Because ghosting is rude, I wrote back. He sent a laughing emoji, then, meet me for 5 minutes. I'll buy the tea this time. I didn't answer, but I didn't block him either. Back at the office, I stared at the reflection in my screen instead of the document in front of me. My hair looked perfect, makeup still intact, eyes steady. I looked like someone who had everything under control. I even smiled a little. If people think you're fine, you start to feel that way. At 5, I packed up my things and left. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed again. Jonas, I'm near the fountain. Just want to talk. It wasn't far, just a few blocks down the promenade, same direction as the train. 5 minutes, I told myself. Then home. He was waiting in the shadow of the trees, hands in his pockets. You came, he said, like it was some grand gesture. I'm not staying, I told him. He shrugged. Fair enough. I just didn't like how last night ended. I don't think it needs an ending, I said. He looked at me like he could see straight through the line. You're nervous. I laughed. You wish. We talked for a few minutes, nothing important. Wedding stress, work updates, old jokes. When I mentioned Noah, his expression softened in a way that made me uncomfortable. He's lucky, Jonas said quietly. Don't start that, I said. I'm just saying what's true. I told him not to. He nodded, smiled again, and said he understood. But as I turned to leave, he reached for my wrist, barely touching. You used to like being told the truth. I froze. The streetlight flickered above us, half gold, half grey. I have to go, I said. He let go. See you around, bride-to-be. The word stung more than I wanted to admit. On the train home, I kept thinking about that small touch. It wasn't romantic. It was just energy, attention, acknowledgement. Things Noah hadn't given me in weeks. I told myself that didn't mean anything, but the thought kept replaying. When I reached the apartment, it was dark again, except for a low glow coming from the guest room. I stood by the door and listened. The faint hum of the printer, a quiet shuffle of papers. I knocked softly. Noah opened the door halfway. His eyes looked calm, focused. Behind him, I saw neat stacks of envelopes, a small filing box on the desk. What's all this? I asked. Just organizing things, he said. For work? For everything. It wasn't an answer, but his tone made me step back. I laughed a little to lighten it. You're starting to sound like a detective. He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Detectives look for trouble. I'm just putting things in order. I crossed my arms. You make it sound like something's wrong. He studied me for a second. Is there? I felt my throat tighten. No, I said. Why would you even ask that? Because sometimes people say they're fine when they're not, he said, turning off the lamp. Good night, Evadne. I stood in the hallway long after the door clicked shut. The next morning, he didn't leave early. He stayed, reading the news quietly while I got ready. I tried to talk about the rehearsal dinner guest list, but his eyes stayed on the screen. I was thinking of trimming the list, I said. Too many people. Do what you need, he replied. You don't care who's there? I'll be there, he said. That's enough. That tone, steady, deliberate, was worse than shouting. It sounded like someone who'd already made a decision. By noon, I was in meetings again, but my brain kept drifting. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be him, saying something, anything, to pull us back to normal. But it was never him. Instead, around 2, Sienna called. Hey, are you okay? She asked immediately. Of course, I said. Why? Someone posted a photo of you last night, on the promenade, with a guy. I froze. Who? I don't know. It was blurry. The caption just said, guess marriage isn't locking everyone down. I figured it was a joke, but... Send it to me, I said. She did. The photo was grainy, taken from across the street, 2 figures under a streetlight. You couldn't see faces, but anyone who knew us could guess. My stomach twisted. Sienna's voice was gentle. People love gossip. Just wanted to warn you before someone else does. Thanks, I said. I'll handle it. I hung up, deleted the image, and sat staring at the screen. My reflection looked pale, angry, but mostly afraid. When I got home, Noah was sitting on the couch, laptop open again. I dropped my bag and said, "We need to talk." He looked up. "About what?" "You've seen it, haven't you?" He tilted his head. "Seen what?" I searched his face for a clue. Nothing. Not anger, not confusion, just that steady, unreadable calm. "It's nothing," I said finally. "Someone posted a stupid picture." He nodded once, then returned his eyes to the screen. "That's all you have to say?" I asked. "I don't think you're asking for my opinion," he said. I felt my temper flare. "You're unbelievable. You'd rather sit there pretending nothing's happening than just talk to me." He closed the laptop slowly. "If there's something you want to tell me, you can." "There's nothing to tell," I said. "Then we're fine," he replied. His calmness made my voice shake. "You don't believe me?" "I didn't say that." "But you don't," I said. He exhaled through his nose. "Evadne, sometimes believing or not believing doesn't change anything." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means truth doesn't depend on my opinion." I stood there, fists clenched. "You're twisting things." He stood too, his movements precise, controlled. "Maybe, but I'd rather twist words than people." That line cut sharper than I expected. I turned away, pretending to tidy the table. After he went to bed, I scrolled through my messages. Jonas had sent nothing all day, and the silence felt louder than before. I almost texted first just to prove I didn't care. Instead, I opened the window and listened to the traffic. The world kept moving like nothing was wrong. At midnight, I heard Noah's phone vibrate once. He didn't move. Maybe he was asleep. Maybe not. The next day, at lunch, my mother called. "I saw that little post," she said. "Is Noah giving you a hard time about it?" "It's nothing," I said. "He's too serious, darling. Men like that need to loosen up. Don't let him make you feel guilty for having friends." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "I'm not." "Good," she said. "You're not one of those clingy women. You have your own life." I hung up, strangely comforted and yet hollow. My mother always knew how to hand me a shield just as it cracked in the middle. When I got home, Noah wasn't there. A sticky note was on the counter. "Dinner's in the fridge. Have a good night." Underneath it, another calendar reminder glowed on his tablet. Downtown 10:45 a.m. I picked it up, tempted to open it, but stopped. I told myself it didn't matter. He was probably running errands, finalizing the venue payment, something normal. At least that's what I told myself as I sat in the quiet kitchen, scrolling through comments that felt like whispers behind glass. By evening, Sienna called again. "Manager from the venue texted," she said. "Noah confirmed new seating arrangements." "He didn't tell me that," I said. "Maybe he forgot," she offered gently. Noah didn't forget things. Not anymore. When he finally came home, I asked about it. He said, "I made a few adjustments. You'll see." "You're supposed to tell me first." "I'm supposed to make sure things go smoothly," he said. "That's all." "Smoothly for who?" "For everyone," he said, his voice so level it felt mechanical. We ate in silence. Afterward, he stacked his dish, rinsed it, and placed it on the opposite counter from mine. Separate sides, separate plates. As he passed me, his phone buzzed again. I glanced down. A new reminder glowed briefly. Meeting, personal. He saw me looking and said, "Don't worry, it's nothing bad." I smiled faintly. "You say that like there's something to worry about." He didn't answer, only went to the guest room again. The door clicked softly, that familiar barrier sealing us apart. I sat alone at the table, scrolling through my phone, trying not to think. Jonas's last message still sat at the bottom of the thread. "You didn't say you didn't want to." I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Then I deleted it. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum from the printer again. A single sheet slid out, blank. I walked to the desk and touched it, warm, clean, waiting. I folded it in half, tucked it into the drawer, and whispered to no one, "Everything's fine." It almost sounded true. The morning air had that sharp kind of chill that makes your breath visible, thin white strands that vanish before you can finish a thought. I stood by the window watching it, thinking how even the sky looked cleaner than I felt. Noah was already gone, but his side of the counter was perfectly arranged, mug upside down on its coaster, napkin folded, small envelope pinned under his keys with a note that said, "Venue payment, confirmed." He didn't even tell me he was going there. He just did it, like I was a guest in my own wedding. I made toast I didn't eat and sat staring at the wall clock. Every tick sounded like a small accusation. I knew Sienna would message soon. She always did when she sensed something off. But I wasn't in the mood to play pretend today. My phone vibrated anyway, buzzing across the counter until it hit the mug. "Sienna, venue walk through today, 3 p.m. You coming?" I typed of course, then erased it, wrote I'll be there. It looked more neutral, more composed. The way Noah would have said it. The day dragged. I went to work, pretended to type reports, ignored the curious looks from co-workers who'd seen the photos circulating online. Someone must have shared that Riverside picture again because 2 people stopped talking when I walked by the break room. I smiled anyway, pretending I didn't notice. Smiling is armor if you do it long enough. By the time I reached the venue, the air smelled like cut flowers and disinfectant. Rows of white chairs faced a small stage where the rehearsal dinner would take place tomorrow. The event coordinator waved, too cheerful for the weather. Sienna stood near the front, holding her clipboard like it was a shield. Her eyes darted to me and then away. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "Yeah, just making sure everything's in order." Noah came earlier to finalize the seating chart. I blinked. "He what?" "He said you'd approved it." "I didn't," I said. "What did he change?" She shifted awkwardly, checking her notes. "It's mostly the head table. He moved a few names." "Whose names?" "Jonas," she said softly. My throat went dry. Jonas wasn't supposed to have a seat at the front. "He said you'd invited him," she said quickly, and Noah agreed that keeping him visible might avoid gossip. I almost laughed. "Avoid gossip? That'll start it." Sienna's expression softened. "Evadne, people already talk. Maybe Noah just wants to control the story." The phrase stung. Control the story. That was my line. That's what I did. Shape the narrative so people saw what I wanted them to. But lately, it felt like Noah had stolen my script and was reading it better than I ever could. I walked around the room, trailing my fingers along the tablecloth. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Crisp napkins, polished cutlery, name cards printed in neat serif font. Even the air smelled expensive. My name beside Noah's on the board made my chest tighten instead of flutter. He arrived about 20 minutes later, holding a small box of paper programs. He looked rested, almost cheerful. "You're early," he said. "So are you." He placed the box down carefully. I wanted to double-check the head table. "I heard," I said, "you rearranged it." He didn't look surprised. "I thought it might make things easier." "For who?" "For everyone," he said again, same steady tone. "Less speculation." "You mean less embarrassment for you?" He met my eyes. "Do you think I'm embarrassed?" "Yes," I said, "and you should be honest about it instead of pretending you're some saint above gossip." He smiled faintly. "I'm not above gossip, I just record it." The word sent a chill up my spine. "Record it? What are you talking about?" He didn't answer, just opened one of the programs, scanning the print. "You approved the layout," he said. "Same wording you sent." "You're deflecting." "Probably," he said, "but the rehearsal starts in 10 minutes. You should get ready." The coordinator appeared again, cheerful and oblivious, ushering people toward the stage. I forced myself to smile and follow. Noah stood beside me, calm and polite, while everyone fussed over lighting and music cues. We looked like a normal couple, him collected, me radiant, perfect photo material. During the break, I stepped into the hall to breathe. My phone buzzed again. It was Jonas. Jonas. So, guess I'm invited now. Front row, no less. I frowned, typing fast. You shouldn't come. Jonas. Too late, I already RSVP'd. He told me personally. Noah. I deleted the message thread on impulse, like that could undo it. Then I saw Sienna watching from down the corridor, pretending to check her phone. She looked guilty, like she'd read everything without meaning to. I turned away. The rehearsal dragged into evening. Noah kept smiling for the photographers, saying polite thank yous, moving through people like smoke, present but untouchable. When it finally ended, he told everyone he'd meet them tomorrow for the dinner. His tone made it sound more like a closing statement than an invitation. As the crowd thinned, I lingered, staring at the flickering candles on the tables. Sienna walked up beside me. He's being calm, she said carefully. That's the problem. She hesitated. Evadne, can I ask you something? Please don't bite my head off. Depends on the question. Did something actually happen with Jonas? I don't mean the photo, I mean, no, I said too quickly. Okay, she said, eyes searching mine. Then tell him that. Stop letting silence win. I wanted to scream that I'd tried, that Noah's silence wasn't something you could fill with words. It was like trying to talk over water. Everything you say just sinks. But instead, I smiled thinly. Thanks for the advice. She sighed, squeezed my arm once, and left. I stayed until the staff started packing up. Noah was already gone. His car wasn't in the lot, but the faint scent of his cologne lingered near the door, cedar, subtle, impossible to forget. At home, the apartment lights were off, except one in the guest room. I hesitated outside the door. Inside, I could hear faint clicking, keyboard strokes, the whir of the printer again. I knocked once. He said, "Come in." He didn't look up when I entered. The desk was neat as always. On the screen was a spreadsheet, tabs labeled, expenses, photos, miscellaneous. I recognized one file name, Riverside JPG. What's that? I asked. He clicked the tab closed. Documentation. Of what? Us. Why would you need to document us? I asked, forcing a laugh. He leaned back, folding his hands. You know how you always say perception is everything. I'm starting to agree. You sound ridiculous. Maybe, he said, but ridiculed men learn fast. I stared at him. You're acting paranoid. And you're acting, he said softly. I felt my face heat. What does that mean? It means you perform emotions instead of feeling them, he said. You're doing it now. Anger, guilt, whatever you think I expect. It's exhausting. That's unfair. Probably, he said again, standing. But it's late. You should sleep. He brushed past me gently, the faintest touch on my shoulder, and left the room. I wanted to chase him, force a confrontation, but my chest felt hollow. Instead, I looked back at the screen. A second later, it dimmed, locking itself. I went to bed, staring at the ceiling again. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. Marla, I saw Noah's social post, so formal. Looks like he's turning into a politician. You should remind him people like warmth. I opened the link she'd sent. It was a short caption, under a photo from the rehearsal, me laughing, Noah looking away. His caption read, "Big moments test small truths." Comments poured in from friends. You two are perfect, so elegant, can't wait for the wedding. I wanted to believe them, but his eyes in that picture weren't smiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and padded back to the kitchen. The printer light blinked again, slow and steady. A small flash drive sat beside it, labeled with today's date. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. Empty on one side, silver on the other. When I plugged it into the laptop, a single folder appeared. Backup, personal. I clicked, heart pounding. Inside were subfolders, photos, receipts, messages, timeline. I didn't open them. I just stared until the screen went blurry. Then I ejected the drive, set it back where I found it, and whispered, "You think you're clever." The next morning, he made breakfast. 2 plates, eggs and toast arranged neatly. "You didn't have to," I said. "I wanted to," he replied. We ate mostly in silence. Halfway through, I said, "You're really going to let Jonas sit at the head table?" He nodded. "It's the polite thing to do." "Polite? You hate him." He looked at me calmly. "I don't hate anyone. I just stopped trusting them." I set my fork down too hard. "This isn't trust, it's manipulation." "Maybe," he said, "but it's organized." I stood up. "You're unbelievable." He stayed seated, cutting into his toast. "You should finish eating. You'll need energy for tonight." "What happens tonight?" He looked up then, eyes steady. "You'll see." That tone, so certain, so final, left no room for guessing. I went to work just to get away from the walls. Every surface in that apartment felt like it was watching me. At lunch, Sienna texted again. "Your fiancé's calmer than I expected." Kind of spooky, actually. I typed back, "He's fine, just stressed." Then deleted the message. By evening, clouds rolled in. The city lights blurred under drizzle. When I got home, Noah was gone again, but his calendar lay open on the counter. Another note in neat handwriting. "Confirm with officiant, done." Follow-up call, 9:25. He'd circled the time twice. I went into the living room and stared at our engagement photo on the wall. Us on the beach, laughing, sand on our shoes. For a moment, I didn't recognize the people in it. They looked younger, freer, less afraid. I thought about taking it down, but left it there. Removing it would look like guilt. When he came home later, he looked almost peaceful. I asked where he'd been. "Errands," he said. "What kind?" "Just errands." He started unpacking a grocery bag, 2 new folders, printer paper, and a small lockbox. I raised an eyebrow. "Are we starting an office now?" He smiled faintly. "Something like that." He moved past me, humming quietly. The sound was calm, deliberate. I sat on the couch, pretending to scroll my phone, waiting for him to slip up, to show something real. But he never did. When he finished putting things away, he looked at me and said, "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow's big." I wanted to ask what he meant, but his tone stopped me. Instead, I said, "You're scaring me with all this mystery." He smiled again, small and polite. No mysteries, just clarity. He went to the guest room. The door closed. I stayed there in the half-lit living room until the printer hummed again. One sheet slid out, blank, as always. I walked over, took it in my hands, and tore it in half. But when I looked down, the second page was already sliding out, as if the machine had decided to keep printing no matter what I wanted. I left it there, the page curling on the tray, and whispered into the empty room, "You win, Noah. Whatever game this is, you win." The printer light blinked once, steady and green, like it understood. The morning of the family dinner started like nothing mattered, and maybe that was the only reason I managed to smile through it. I put on a soft beige dress, curled my hair, and tried to look like the version of myself everyone preferred, the organized, charming bride-to-be who always said the right thing. The reflection in the mirror smiled back, like it still believed the act could work. Noah had left early again. His coffee mug was already washed and turned upside down on the counter. Next to it lay a folded napkin with one small line in his handwriting. "Dinner tonight at your mother's, 6 sharp." It didn't even sound like a reminder. It sounded like an instruction. I told myself I wouldn't let him control the tone of the day. I'd go to dinner. I'd smile. I'd prove we were fine. People just needed reassurance. That's all. If I looked happy enough, they'd believe it, and maybe I'd believe it too. By noon, I was running through the guest list on my phone, half listening to the music playing in the background. The dress bag hung by the door. The fabric rustled whenever the air conditioner kicked in. Somewhere under the hum of the apartment, I thought I heard the faint whir of the printer again. I almost checked, but stopped myself. Whatever Noah was doing with all those papers, I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of asking. At 5:30, he walked through the door carrying a small folder tucked under his arm. He looked polished, dark shirt, clean lines, calm face. He greeted me like I was a colleague, not his fiancé. "Ready?" he asked. "I've been ready," I said, trying to sound playful. He nodded once. "Good, let's not be late." The drive to my mother's house felt endless. He kept one hand on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road. I tried small talk about the menu, about the flowers she probably over-ordered, but his replies were short, polite, detached. It made me want to fill the silence faster. "You know she'll fuss," I said. "She always does. Just smile and survive it." "I always smile," he said. "Survival is optional." I frowned. "You don't have to sound like a philosopher all the time." "I'm not trying to," he said. "Some truths just fit better in short sentences." I looked out the window. His calmness felt louder than shouting. When we arrived, my mother's house was already full. The smell of garlic bread and perfume hit us before we even rang the bell. She opened the door herself, glowing like she was the one getting married. "My darlings," she said, hugging me first, then Noah with less enthusiasm. "Come in. Everyone's in the dining room." Everyone meant my mother, Greg, my sister Lila, and Sienna, who looked like she regretted agreeing to come. Lila's husband waved awkwardly from the couch. The table was set for 8, candles flickering, glasses already half filled. "You look lovely," my mother said, pulling me aside. "And Noah, well, formal as always." He smiled politely. "Thank you." "Sit, sit," she said, ushering us toward the table. "We're celebrating love tonight, aren't we?" I sat next to Noah, across from Greg. My mother took the head of the table as if she owned the ceremony itself. Conversation started slow. Small talk about the weather, about Lila's new job. Then my mother turned to Noah. "So," she said brightly, "our little Evadne's quite the handful, isn't she?" Noah didn't flinch. "She's strong-minded," he said. "That's one of her better traits." "Better traits," I repeated, laughing too loudly. "You make it sound like a list." Greg spoke up quietly. "He probably has one." The table chuckled, everyone except Noah. My mother leaned in, curious. "Oh, Greg, don't start. You men and your notes." Noah smiled faintly. "Notes are useful." I rolled my eyes. "He's just organized. Don't read into it." "Organized is good," Greg said, his tone light but his eyes sharp. "But I hope you're not keeping score, son." Noah looked at him evenly. "Scores are for games. This is life." The way he said it made the air thicken. My mother clapped her hands to break the tension. "Let's toast to love, to family, to new beginnings." Everyone raised their glasses. I caught Noah's reflection in mine. Still calm, still untouchable. After the toast, the conversation drifted. My mother talked about the rehearsal dinner. Lila showed pictures from her vacation. I tried to relax, to blend into the noise, but my heart kept pounding. I needed to reclaim control somehow, make the night mine again. So I laughed louder than I should have. I told a story about how Noah forgot our first date anniversary last year, exaggerating the details so everyone could laugh. "He made up for it with a spreadsheet of reasons he's sorry," I said. "Color-coded, of course." Everyone laughed except Greg. He glanced at Noah, then at me. "Public teasing doesn't suit you," he said quietly. I smiled tightly. "It's a joke." "Some jokes weigh more than others," he said. My mother waved him off. "Oh, lighten up, Greg. It's good for couples to keep humor alive." Noah still hadn't said a word. He cut his food with slow, precise movements, like he was controlling something inside himself. Finally, he said, "She's right. Humor keeps things alive. I wanted him to sound angry or sarcastic, anything, but his tone was flat, factual. When dessert arrived, the conversation turned to the guest list again. My mother, of course, had opinions. You should invite more of your old friends, Evadne. Weddings are for reconnections. Some connections don't need revisiting, Noah said. Oh, nonsense, she said. You never know when people will surprise you. Greg set his glass down gently. Sometimes surprises are exactly what you should prepare for. There was silence after that, the kind that fills every corner of a room. I pushed my chair back. Excuse me, I said, heading for the kitchen. Sienna followed. You okay? Fine, I said, leaning against the counter. Just tired of everyone acting like they know what's best for me. She hesitated. You know, Greg's not wrong about the jokes. It's starting to look like you're trying to prove something. I'm just making conversation. She sighed. People can see when something's off. They're not stupid. Then they can stop watching, I snapped. She raised her hands. I'm trying to help. I softened my tone. I know. Sorry, it's just complicated. Sienna gave me a long look, then changed the subject. Did you see Jonas's new post? My chest tightened. What post? She handed me her phone. On the screen was a photo of the river, the same spot we'd walked. The caption read, "Midnight walks never fade." My pulse hammered. When did he post that? An hour ago, she said. You should probably tell Noah before someone else does. I stared at the photo. No, it'll only make things worse. Sienna bit her lip. He's going to find out anyway. Before I could answer, I heard my mother calling from the dining room. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and walked back out, pretending everything was fine. Noah was standing now, talking quietly with Greg near the window. My mother smiled too brightly as I returned. Everything all right, dear? Perfect, I said. Noah turned toward me, his expression unreadable. Greg looked between us like he'd seen something forming and wanted no part of it. I forced a laugh. So, what deep life lessons are we sharing now? Noah's voice was calm. Just discussing expectations. Expectations are dangerous, I said. They ruin surprises. He nodded slowly. Maybe surprises aren't what we need anymore. My mother frowned. You two sound like you're planning a debate, not a marriage. We're planning, Noah said. The rest is tone. Everyone laughed awkwardly, but Greg didn't. He watched Noah carefully, as if recognizing the exact shape of the calm. After dinner, my mother insisted on a photo. She arranged us near the window, me in front, Noah behind me, his hand on my shoulder. The flash went off once, then twice. My mother looked pleased, but Noah's hand stayed still too long, cold through the fabric. When we said our goodbyes, my mother hugged me hard and whispered, "Don't let him make you small." Greg shook Noah's hand firmly. "Handle it properly," he said under his breath. On the drive home, the silence felt heavier than the car. I turned on the radio just to hear something that wasn't breathing. He turned it back off. "You could have defended me," I said finally. "I didn't realize you needed defending." "From your father, maybe. He's making this sound like some courtroom drama." He glanced at me. "He just believes in consequences." "Consequences for what?" He didn't answer. Back at the apartment, he went straight to the guest room again. I followed, leaning against the doorframe. "You could at least say something real." He looked up from his folder. "Something real?" "Yes, like whether you're angry or disappointed, or anything human." He closed the folder gently. "I'm past angry." "Then what are you?" "Prepared." The word hit harder than I expected. "Prepared for what?" He didn't reply. He stood, brushed past me, and went to the kitchen. The faint hum of the printer started again moments later. I sat on the bed, staring at the open drawer where the flash drives used to be. They were gone. When he came back, he looked calmer than ever. "Go to sleep," he said softly. Big day tomorrow. I wanted to demand answers, but my throat wouldn't cooperate. Instead, I watched as he set his mug on the far side of the counter again, separate from mine. Then he turned off the light, leaving me in half darkness. For a long time, I just sat there, listening to the steady rhythm of the printer and the faint click of keys. It sounded almost peaceful. Too peaceful. In the silence, I realized peace is just what you hear right before the storm finally starts. The morning of the rehearsal began too quietly. The city outside the window sounded far away, almost polite, like it didn't want to disturb whatever strange balance lived in our apartment. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dress bag hanging from the closet. It looked heavy, like a decision I hadn't finished making. Noah wasn't in the room. I could hear faint clinks from the kitchen, the sound of a mug being set down, the low beep of the microwave. I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and walked out. He was standing by the counter, reading something on his phone. A suit jacket hung over the chair. His calmness made me nervous. "You're up early," I said. He nodded, still scrolling. "Lots to do." "You didn't sleep much." He glanced at me then. "Neither did you." I wanted to say something light, maybe a joke about nerves, but his tone made me stop. The silence stretched between us like a rope no one wanted to touch. I poured coffee into my cup. His was already empty, rinsed, turned upside down on the other side of the counter. That distance between the mugs felt deliberate now, like punctuation in a language only he spoke. "Are you excited?" I asked finally. "Rehearsal's supposed to be the fun part." "I'm looking forward to it," he said. It was the way he said it, flat, formal, like a line rehearsed in a mirror. I smiled too brightly. "Good. Everyone will be there. It'll feel real." "It already feels real," he said. He reached for his phone again, typed something, then looked up. "We should leave by 10. There's traffic on the west side." I nodded, though it was only 7. He left soon after, saying he had a quick stop to make downtown, the same direction as all those calendar alerts. I tried not to think about it. The apartment felt bigger without him, the quiet pressing against my chest. I opened my laptop to check the group chat. The bridesmaids were already buzzing about decorations. Sienna had sent a photo of the rehearsal hall. Rows of chairs, soft lighting, flowers draped along the banister. Her caption said, "Almost time, bride." I typed back, "It's all happening." I didn't add that it felt like it was happening to someone else. Around 9, my phone rang. My mother. "Morning, darling," she said. "Big day." "Morning," I said, forcing a cheerful tone. "You sound tense. Don't overthink it. Everyone's talking about how elegant you looked last night." "I wasn't trying to make a statement," I said. "Oh, nonsense. A woman always makes a statement whether she means to or not. Just remember, smile. People love confidence." I bit back the urge to tell her confidence wasn't the same as control. "I'll smile," I said. "Good girl. And keep your chin up if anyone brings up that silly post. People gossip because they're bored." "I know." She paused. "Noah's treating you right, isn't he?" I froze. "Of course he is. Why wouldn't he?" "You just sound off," she said softly. "Men like him can be hard to read. Don't let him think silence is power." I ended the call with a promise to text her later. By 10, I was dressed, makeup perfect, every strand of hair pinned in place. I kept waiting for a message from him, something to confirm he was coming back for me. Nothing. At 10:30, he finally called. "I'm outside," he said simply. When I stepped out, the car engine was running. He looked calm, collected. The folder from last night was gone from the passenger seat. The drive to the venue was silent. I tried to start small talk, about flowers, about how Greg might act tonight, but he answered with polite one-word responses. At one point I said, "You could at least pretend you're happy." He looked over, eyes unreadable. "Pretending is your thing, not mine." The words landed sharper than I expected. I turned toward the window, my throat tight. When we arrived, the coordinator greeted us with too much enthusiasm. "You two look radiant," she said. "This is going to be perfect." I smiled automatically. Noah thanked her and went straight to talk to the sound crew. People started arriving soon after. My mother, Greg, Sienna, the rest of the wedding party. There were hugs, chatter, the occasional camera flash. I laughed when I needed to, even managed to tease Greg about his tie. For a while, I almost believed I could keep this illusion upright. Then Sienna came over, holding her phone. "You might want to see this," she whispered. On her screen was a message from Jonas's account. A photo of a river at night, captioned, "Some things end where they began." The timestamp was from this morning. I felt my stomach twist. "Delete it," I said. She hesitated. "It's already being shared." "Then tell people it's old," I said quickly. "Make it sound boring." She nodded, worry in her eyes. "Are you sure Noah hasn't seen it?" "He doesn't check social media," I said. "He barely checks his phone." It wasn't entirely true. He checked it constantly, just not for me. By noon, everyone had taken their places for the rehearsal walkthrough. The officiant adjusted his papers, the music cued softly. I stood at the back of the hall with my bouquet mock-up, waiting for my cue. My heart raced, but not with nerves. Something felt off, like the air itself was waiting for an answer. When I finally started walking, the doors opened, the music swelling around me. All eyes turned toward me, and for a heartbeat I felt powerful again, seen, admired, unbreakable. Then I saw Noah at the end of the aisle. He wasn't smiling. His expression wasn't angry either. It was steady, measured, like he was watching a scene from a distance. We rehearsed the lines, the steps, the cues. Everything went perfectly, technically. Everyone clapped at the end, but the silence between each cheer was unbearable. During the break, I pulled him aside. "You could at least act like you're happy to marry me," I hissed. He studied me for a long moment. "You want a performance?" "I want a partner." He nodded slowly. "Then stop auditioning." I blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" He looked past me toward the window. "You treat love like a test. I keep passing, and you keep changing the questions." "That's not fair," I said. "Fairness isn't the goal," he said. "Truth is." Before I could respond, my mother appeared, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Pictures," she announced. "Let's get some of the happy couple." We stood side by side again, cameras clicking. His hand rested lightly on my back, polite, careful. When the flash went off, I caught the reflection of us in the mirror behind the photographer. Me smiling too wide, him looking like he was already somewhere else. After the photos, he turned to Greg, who was standing near the entrance. They spoke quietly, too low for me to hear. Greg nodded once, patted his shoulder, and walked off. My mother called for more pictures, but Noah shook his head. "We're done for now," he said. The coordinator clapped her hands. "Great job, everyone. See you all tomorrow for the big day." People started leaving, chatting about dinner plans. I lingered near the table, rearranging flowers just to stay busy. Sienna came back, whispering, "You should check your messages." I glanced at my phone. 2 missed calls, unknown number, and 1 text from Jonas. "You look beautiful. Just remember who saw you first." I deleted it instantly, heart pounding. "He's trying to get attention," I said. Sienna frowned. "You need to tell Noah before someone else does." "I told you it's nothing," I said, sharper than I meant. Noah walked over then, calm as always. "Everything set?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Everything's perfect." He studied me quietly, as if confirming the lie, then said, "Good. Let's go." In the car, the sun had started to set, streaks of orange fading into grey. The silence pressed harder than before. Finally, I said, "You could at least tell me what's going on. You've been acting strange for weeks." He kept his eyes on the road. "I told you, I'm handling things." "Handling what?" "Properly," he said. I turned toward him. "You're scaring me." He shook his head. "No, Evadne, You're just seeing me clearly." He parked outside the apartment and didn't move to get out. For a long moment, we just sat there, the engine humming. Then he said, "You know, I used to think silence meant peace. Now I know it just gives people room to rewrite the story." I swallowed. "And what story are you writing?" He smiled faintly. "The truthful one." When we went inside, he went straight to the guest room again. I followed, heart racing. "I want to know what you're doing," I said. He turned, hands resting lightly on the desk. "I'm preparing." "For what?" "For tomorrow." His tone was calm, final. I looked around the room, the printer, the locked drawers, the small key on his ring. "You're not going to ruin this," I said. He met my eyes. "No, Evadne, I'm going to finish it." That night, I tried to sleep, but every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The ticking clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft shuffle of papers in the other room. At one point, I got up and walked to the door of the guest room. Light seeped through the crack beneath it. I almost knocked. Instead, I whispered through the wood, "Whatever you think you're proving, it's not worth it." There was a pause, then his voice, low but clear. "It already was." I stood there until the light went out. When morning finally broke, I was still awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, the dress bag hanging silently in the corner. The printer in the next room made one last quiet sound, then stopped. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. The day of the rehearsal dinner began like a dream I couldn't wake from. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in narrow lines, soft and harmless, the way things look before they fall apart. I moved through the apartment slowly, like I was walking underwater. The dress hung by the window, ivory and gentle, a piece of fabric that used to mean something. I told myself this was still my story, that all I needed was one more good performance to fix the ending. Noah wasn't there when I woke. He'd left before dawn again, leaving behind his usual silence, a single mug washed, a faint smell of coffee, a folded napkin on the counter. The note said only, "See you at the venue." 11:30, no good morning, no heart, just logistics. I dressed carefully, checking myself in the mirror. My reflection looked calm, almost smug. I whispered, "You're still the bride," and smiled like it was true. The drive to the city blurred by. My hand stayed tight on the wheel. Every traffic light felt longer than usual. Outside, the world was bright and normal, people laughing at crosswalks, cars honking, a street musician playing something happy. I wanted to hate them for sounding alive. The plaza outside the rehearsal hall shimmered with glass and white marble. Guests gathered near the entrance, chatting, checking their phones, adjusting dresses. My mother stood near the stairs, talking too loudly. Sienna waved when she saw me. I waved back, pretending the air didn't feel like static. Inside, everything looked perfect. White tablecloths, the faint smell of flowers, the quiet hum of conversation. It felt like walking into a picture someone else had painted. Noah arrived right on time. He looked composed, suit perfectly pressed, folder under his arm. He greeted people politely, hugged my mother, even thanked Sienna for helping with the arrangements. Everyone noticed his calm. I could feel them comparing it to mine. I reached for his arm. "You made it," I said softly. "Of course," he said. "I always finish what I start." It sounded kind, but it wasn't. The coordinator gathered everyone near the stage to go over last-minute instructions. Cameras flashed as people took photos for the wedding page. My mother fussed with my hair. "You're glowing," she said. "I'm exhausted," I replied. "Same thing," she said. "Exhaustion looks divine in pictures." I laughed, because that's what she expected. Halfway through the rehearsal, I caught Noah watching me. Not in anger, not in love, just measuring, as if confirming something. When I smiled at him, he didn't return it. He looked down at his phone instead, typing something quickly. By noon, the group moved outside to the plaza for a lunch break. The air was warm and dry, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. People milled around, chatting. I noticed Greg talking with two men I didn't recognize. Suit jackets, calm expressions. He gestured toward Noah once, nodded, then walked away. I tried to shake off the unease. Sienna joined me by the railing. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm fine," I said automatically. "Jonas is here," she whispered. "What?" She tilted her head toward the far end of the plaza. There he was, leaning against a pillar, sunglasses hiding his eyes. "He said Noah invited him," she added quietly. The words hit like cold water. "He what?" "He showed me the message," Sienna said, "from Noah's account." I couldn't breathe for a second. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know," she said, "but he's watching you." I looked again. Jonas smiled faintly, lifted his cup in a half-toast, like this was all still some game. I wanted to run, but my mother called out from behind me. "Photos again, everyone." People gathered on the steps. I stood beside Noah, still dazed. The photographer adjusted his lens. Noah leaned slightly closer and whispered, "This won't take long." "What are you talking about?" I whispered back. He didn't answer. The photographer told us to hold still. I smiled because that's what I do. The flash went off once, twice. Then, as the crowd started to relax, a man in a grey suit approached from the edge of the plaza, holding a slim envelope. He said Noah's name first, clearly. Noah nodded and gestured toward me. "She's the one you need." The man stepped closer, stopping just in front of me. "Evadne sure?" he asked. "Yes," I said slowly. He held out the envelope. "This is for you." People were still smiling, thinking it was part of the rehearsal. Cameras were still raised. I reached for the envelope without understanding, my hand shaking slightly. "What is this?" I asked. "Delivery confirmation," the man said simply. "Filed this morning." Noah stepped back, giving me space. I tore it open, half expecting a prank. Inside was a short, official-looking document. My eyes skimmed over the words. Notice of petition for annulment and temporary financial orders. For a moment, the sound around me vanished. The laughter, the music, the clicking cameras, all faded into static. I looked at him. "You can't be serious." He met my gaze. "It's all documented now." My throat went dry. "This isn't how people fix things, Noah." He tilted his head. "You wanted honesty. You said that was love's foundation. I'm giving you both." My mother's voice broke through the shock. "What's going on?" Noah turned to her, his tone even. "I'm ending an agreement that wasn't built on truth," she gasped. "You can't just—" "I can," he said, "and I already have." The photographer lowered his camera slowly. Guests murmured, the realization spreading like ripples. Jonas started forward, half laughing, half stunned. "You're serious, man? Here?" Noah looked at him calmly. "You should leave, Jonas." Jonas froze, mouth open, then backed away. My mother grabbed my arm. "Say something," she hissed. "Don't just stand there." I wanted to. I wanted to scream, to explain, to make the world pause long enough for me to think. But my tongue felt heavy, my mind blank. Noah handed Greg a small folder. "Backups and receipts," he said. "As requested." Greg nodded once, professional. "Understood." The crowd had gone silent. Phones were still raised, recording. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and uneven. I forced myself to speak. "You're humiliating me." Noah looked at me, his eyes calm and steady. "You did that yourself." The words cut so clean they barely hurt. I wanted to reach for him, to grab his arm, to make him listen, but he'd already turned to the man in the suit, signing something on a clipboard. The man nodded, collected a signature, and left as quickly as he'd arrived. Sienna was crying quietly. My mother's face had gone pale. Greg guided her back a step, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Noah looked back at me once more. "You can keep the dress," he said softly. It's yours. I don't want it tied to me. The air around us shifted, cold and sharp. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He turned, handed his car keys to Greg, and walked toward the street. The crowd parted without a word. The sound of his footsteps faded slowly, replaced by the clicks of phones recording everything. I looked down at the envelope still in my hand. The papers fluttered in the wind, corners catching light like tiny mirrors. My mother whispered my name, but I barely heard her. The world had gone muffled, like my ears were underwater. People started whispering again. Words like annulment and proof floated around me. I caught Sienna's eyes for a second, wide, sad, full of something that looked like pity. Someone touched my shoulder. It was the photographer. "Do you want me to delete the photos?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "No. Keep them." I don't know why I said it. Maybe because part of me still wanted to control the story, even if I'd already lost it. The plaza emptied slowly. My mother tried to pull me toward the car, but I stayed still, staring at the spot where Noah had stood. The marble beneath my feet felt colder than before. For a long moment, I thought he might come back, that he'd turn around, that this was just another of his calm performances meant to scare me straight. But he didn't. Across the plaza, a single piece of paper slipped free from the folder Greg still held. It drifted on the wind, landing near my feet. I bent to pick it up. It wasn't a letter or a threat. It was a single printed line, one I recognized from his handwriting, clean and centered on the page. Truth is quieter than revenge. I stared at it until the ink blurred. Someone called my name again, distant, pulling me back to the present. I looked up, realizing cameras were still pointed my way. Flashbulbs flared once, twice. I straightened my shoulders, forced the practiced smile back onto my face and said, "It's fine," but my voice cracked halfway through the word. The plaza doors closed behind me, sealing the sound inside. The papers trembled in my hands as the last echo of footsteps disappeared down the street. And for the first time in years, there was no one left to hear me lie.